Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6:45 on the official clock over here, and we always try to start our meetings at 6:45, give you about 15 minutes of guild business stuff and guild activities going on before we start our program, usually up around 7 o'clock. It's really nice seeing the room this full tonight. I was here last month and it was a little skinnier, but we'll see what's cooking here tonight. For those of you who are fortunate and don't know who I am, I'm Ed Noy. I'm president of the Guild. Myself and 11 other members of the board of directors are the ones who, make the Guild work. And I wanted to ask all the directors to stand up who are here tonight. So we got Matt, who is our program director. Right behind him, Bob Krabby, who's a director at large, but he coaches seminar. And then Angela Vargas over there, she's our membership chair and a very active member of the committee that puts on the Woodworkers Expo, which is coming up in a not too distant future. And who else? I guess who's that? Well, Blake is not on the board of directors, but we'll give Blake a chance to talk here in a few minutes. And besides the board of directors, we have these committees. We got the Expo committee, we got a Northern Woods committee, we got a fall seminar committee, and we've got a programs committee, and all those committees are supported by a bunch of really dedicated and active volunteers, several of whom are here tonight. Oh, and just remind everybody, for courtesy of our presenter, put your cell phone on mute, please. And I want to identify everybody who is here for their very first Minnesota Woodworkers Guild meeting, and stand up, tell us your name and why you're here.
My name is Jim Schutz. I came along with a friend of mine.
Oh, friends are like that. They drag you everywhere, don't they?
So I'm anxious to learn how to do this.
Well, good. Glad to have you. We like new faces. Anybody else? All right, well, we're glad to have you. We have the Guild is supported by a lot of corporate and business operations. And I think we're up to like 43. If you go to our website, you can see who they all are. And we try to support them by giving them business. And they support us being the membership, by giving us significant discounts on woodworking supplies and equipment, and fortunately not machinery. You can't get a discount on any kind of woodworking and machinery, but hand tools you can, and all the lumber and stuff. Places like Rockler and Woodcraft, and our friends up at Forest Products, and just lots of places. So always go in there and take a look at our supporters when you need to buy something, and give them some of your money. We got a bunch of events coming up. The most near event is our next regular meeting, which is in July, and we traditionally have a picnic. And if you go ahead and go to our website, look at events and look at the meeting coming up, you'll find that. What's the date, Matt? I don't remember.
July 9th.
July 9th. And it'll be at the Central Park over in
Roseville.
Yeah, Roseville. I can never remember that. But anyway, all the details are on the website. It's free for everybody. We'll have food and beverages, and an opportunity to share a lot of lies, our woodworking stories. The next event on the calendar that's coming up will be the Woodworkers Expo. This year it's going to be on October 12th. The last 2 years it has been at Canterbury Park. No, just 1 year at Canterbury Park. 2 years prior to that, it was at Bloomington Armory, but we're moving it this year to the State Fairgrounds. And Angela, being on the committee, could you fill us in on a few details?
Yeah, it's going to be at the Progress Center. Lots of free parking. It's going to be as big as last year, maybe a little bit bigger. We're not going to have all the boats that we had last year, so we're going to have the kids in the tent outside, so hopefully the noise control will be better.
And there is no admission to attend it, but we are asking for donations at the door to help us defray costs, because, you know, none of this stuff is free. So we hope to see you all there. It's just 9 to 3, or is it 9 to 4? 9 to 4 this year. Right. And parking is free. It's at the state fairgrounds, so put it on your calendar. After that, then in November, we have our annual fall seminar. Bob, you want to stand up and tell everybody about that one?
Yeah, we're gonna be at the St. Paul College again this year. Like our presenter's name, Chris Martin.
Martin, yeah.
Thank you. Yep, he was one of the judges at the Northern Woods Expo this year, so you guys may have met him down there. But it'll be the first weekend in November, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, 1 through 3, November 1 through 3. Yeah, put that one on your calendar too. This is gonna be really good. Chris is a really personable guy. He's got lots and lots of experience as an educator. He came from Iowa State or University of Iowa, one of those Iowa colleges. Yeah, he was a design instructor. He's now retired from that, and he's out, you know, freelancing in design and creating woodwork. So that should be a really good one. And then the next event after that will be in April 24th through 27th, our annual Northern Woods exhibition, once again at Eden Prairie Center. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about that event this year. Discovered that a lot of our membership doesn't really understand what it is, what it's about, how to get into it, or why you would want to get into it. So we want to spend some time over the next 8-10 months helping everybody understand that stuff. Something else, we frequently, about once or twice a month, we'll get an email either through our website or through somebody on the board of directors being contacted by somebody who's not even a member. They've unfortunately had a loved one who's passed away and left them with a lot of woodworking equipment and supplies, and they have no idea what they could possibly do with it or how they could get rid of it in some cases. So it takes a pretty decent effort to help people like that disperse their stuff. And the board of directors doesn't have the bandwidth to do it. So I'm looking for people in the membership who would be willing to volunteer as part of a small group, trying to get 4, 5 members, 6 maybe, who could work together and figure out how to help these folks. So if anybody here is interested in putting in some time for an effort like that, just let me know and we'll take your name and figure out how we get a group organized that can help us do that. Let's see, other announcements. Hey, Blake, you want to talk about the library a little bit?
Sure, I need a mic.
Talk from there.
We've added some new videos in the last few months, and we've got some good ones, I think. Some hard to find ones from David Charlesworth, some of the last known copies. The guy died, they're not making any more. So those are available. And we've got a whole bunch on inlay. So by Steve Latta. Nice meeting, we got a bunch of videos, some brand new ones from that guy. I found a couple episodes on Roy Underhill's show where Steve Latta was a guest in inlays. I didn't even know we had those, but they're buried in these 2 volumes here. So.
Excellent. Yeah, so we got a lot of videos that cover tonight's meeting topic. Also, you know, every time we have one of these meetings and record it, we put a video out on our YouTube channel. So when we get to our program tonight, if there's something you missed, you can always review it on YouTube. Any other announcements for tonight from anybody? First, we're going to do our customary door prize drawings.
Anybody not get a ticket yet? All right.
We have this official box. Oh, let's get everything on one side so it doesn't go under the flap. We're clean. Okay, the fresh ones are not on the top.
Okay, well, that must be good for me. then.
What are we gonna do? Let's see what we're gonna give
Oh, good
away here
question.
first. What's on the top there?
It's a turning tool, ultra shear mid-size square.
Yeah. What's a carbide tip turning
And
tool?
it is number 474.
474.
All right,
Come on up and you can fetch it.
there you go.
Ugh.
Got a whole packet of sausage. That is number 467.
You got it, Dan.
All right. That's right, for the show. And we have a tight bond Pro Advantage hat.
Oh, it's pro, huh?
That's a nice.
That makes it really
nice
good.
Nylon hat.
I wonder if it sticks like glue.
458. Hey, nice. Yeah.
Now here, this is a real prize here.
Yeah.
We got 3 walnut live edge slabs.
Okay.
Make a really small table.
Okay, number 457. Everyone's
There you
a
go,
winner.
Blake. You make yourself some go fishing signs.
Yeah.
And we'll do one more packet of saw blades, eh?
Okay, sounds good. And 473.
Yes,
All
they ignored that
right.
one last time, so it's time to do somebody else.
All right, we'll draw
Right.
another one.
All right. This is number 448. All right,
There you go, Peg.
now you have to make something.
Very good. Matt, if you would like to introduce our speaker.
Good evening. Tonight we have Steve McCloon. He's going to demonstrate how to make string inlay, do straight lines and curved inlays in your projects. Steve began woodworking in 2007. He was just a mere lad at that time. He took a basic course on woodworking at the Center for Craftsmanship in Maine. And then he hasn't stopped since. He's been gone to workshops from some of the top craftsmen in the country. He has a studio, his studio, Millennium Studio, in a Casket Art Building, where he designs, makes, and sells fine art, crafts, furniture, and he teaches woodwork there as well. Thank you, Steve.
Great.
Well, I learned one thing this evening. Don't try to haul one of these workbenches around by yourself. So these suckers are heavy. So I'm going to take a break and go shower, but I do teach woodworking classes, and I'll just give one quick advertisement. A week from this Saturday, I have a mortise and tenon class, which has been pretty popular with guild members, and there's still 2 places in it, which I'd love to fill. So if anyone's interested, come up and talk to me about it. And it's in my studio in Northeast Minneapolis. So they're always a good time. So.
Could you address the question we had earlier? Can folks come up?
Yeah, when I'm working is fine with people come up. You know, be conscious of the camera. So I assume there's 2 people that are out Zooming. They're going to drift off in a few minutes, so we won't care. But you know, let's keep the camera. Don't stand in front of the camera. But what I'm doing is going to be right here. So I was going to demonstrate string inlay. And I'm a perfect person to do this to a group of people who don't know how to do it because I'm only about 6 hours ahead of you in training. So, it's good, someone who really, really does this all the time is sometimes so sophisticated that they whiz by everything, and I'm not there. So you may have questions that I don't have an answer for, but we're all learning together. So string inlay, so inlay in general is where you make a recess, a hole in wood. I'm going to need that to see. It's where you make a hole in wood and then put something in that hole. That's inlay. And I don't know if any of you remember, but Mark Laub is really famous for doing usually shell inlay, various pieces of mother of pearl. String inlay is quite different from what Mark does. Whoa. I was wondering if that was going to work. So string inlay is where you make a really fine groove and then put literally a string of wood into it. So it has depth to it, so you can sand it and hand plane it. So, but it's in the wood. This string is a piece of wood that is inlaid into the groove. So there's really 3 things we need to talk about. 1, how the heck do you get string? 2, how the heck do you make a groove that this little string is going to fit into? And then finally, how do you get the string in there and get it to stay and finish it up? So those are the 3 things we're going to talk about. So we're going to start this. My plan is to do this. And since I know your attention span is somewhere around 15 minutes, a little more than mine, we're not going to get this whole thing done, but we're going to start working on it. And you should recognize it is a combination of curves and straight lines. And so we're going to talk about different methods for doing curved and straight line inlay. But the first thing to start with is how the heck do you get this string? So string is classically done with holly. Holly is the whitest wood and it maintains its whiteness with age. Most woods get darker with age where holly stays pretty white. There's, probably a zillion exceptions to this. People who use really dark wood inlaying it in light wood, but the classic federal style furniture, which is what really made string inlay popular, was a holly inlay into the wood. So that means we need to start somehow with a piece of holly. And your choice is to buy some holly veneer. And what we're going to do is use string that's 1/32 of an inch thick. And some of you might know that veneer is usually cut wet off a log at 1/32 of an inch. But then they dry it, and so when it's dry, it's a heck of a lot thinner than 1/32. So you can't go down to your favorite woodworking store and buy veneer that's 1/32 of an inch. I have never done it, but I understand there are a couple of companies that sell veneer that's true 1/32. I think all you have to do is send out to the guild email group and you'll get 100 responses in 5 minutes of where to buy 1/32. I think B&B Rare Woods, is that correct? And Certainly Woods, yes. Certainly Woods and B&B Rare Woods are the ones that I've heard of, where you can buy true 1/32 of an inch veneer. I've never done that. What I do is take a holly board I had to sell a child to buy it, but it wasn't a big loss. So I take a holly board and I resaw it on a bandsaw, and I get it just a little thicker than 1/32. And let's just see. Yeah, it's about a 64th of an inch thicker. So a little thicker. Now I think you have two options. You can try to take this piece of veneer that you've resawn on the bandsaw and take it down to exactly 1/32 using a drum sander. And I've never tried to do that. In theory, it sounds easy, but I bet it's not. I bet it's really hard to keep a really even pressure on the whole thing and get 1/32. So even though I have a wonderful drum sander, I've never tried to do that. I leave it thick, and I'm going to cut my string, and then I'm going to thickness it down to 1/32 afterwards. Okay, so how do I cut my string? So I take this sheet of holly, this holly veneer that I cut, and I have a board here. This is going to be really hard to see. There's a little groove along here. That's 1/32 of an inch high and 1/16 of an inch deep. And what I'm going to do is, I hope this shows, and anyone wants to come up and look. I took, the question was, how did I make this board? I went to Home Depot and bought a hunk of poplar. And then I took a router bit. I don't remember what it was, but I took a router bit and I tried to route out the right depth in both directions. And then I ripped it off and adjusted it again and tried another time. And then I ripped that one off. And, you know, towards the end of the second day, I finally got it. So it's really, you can come up afterwards and look at it. It's really small. So, and it seems like it should be so easy to adjust your router table to make exactly the right depth in both directions. But, well, I wasn't that clever. So anyway, so there's a little groove here. And what I'm going to do is slide my little piece of veneer into that groove. Okay, and now, and I didn't realize you guys don't get a television screen. I mean, I understand if you want to go home and Zoom this, you might get to see it better. So you guys should link up with the Turners. They have an incredible video system for everyone to see. Anyway, what I'm doing, which none of you can see, is I'm sliding this little piece of veneer into that groove. And now I'm taking my straight edge, and this is nothing more than a really expensive, fancy metal ruler. There's no reason you can't do this with the metal ruler you buy at Home Depot. So, except you won't have as cool of a tool as I have. But so all it is a metal ruler, a hard metal ruler. And I put sandpaper on the bottom so it doesn't slide. And now what I'm going to do, which you also can't see, sorry, I really didn't appreciate that the audience doesn't get to see the video. What I'm also going to do is just slide the ruler right up to that board. And so now what's happened is I can take this board away, and there's a little bit of that veneer hanging outside of the metal ruler. Does that make any sense at all? Okay, 2 of you shook your head yes. 1 of you shook your head because you fell asleep, but that's a 16th of an inch. So remind me to talk about this later. Something doesn't add up in my mind, which bugs the daylights out of me. but I'm cutting a 1/16 of an inch strip here. And I'm going to route a 1/16 of an inch deep groove and to stick this string down in it. Well, that means it should be totally disappear in the groove, but it never does. It always sticks out. So I don't know why. One of those mysteries. So
Steve, have you ever tried doing that with a marking?
yes. So yeah, I got ahead of myself. Thank you. There's many ways to cut string. I'm showing you the way I cut string. So I should tell you how I got started in string inlay, which is really where I should have begun. So I like to go to Center for Furniture Craftsmanship in the summer, which is in Mid-Coast, Maine. I love the center, but I really love Mid-Coast, Maine. And I really hate Lee Nielsen tools, which are right down the road. And by 2 days there, I have to nail my credit card to a tree. So they have such cool stuff. So on one of my trips to Lee Nielsen, they dragged me there. I didn't want to go. So I bought Lee Nielsen's string inlay kit, which included 4 cool tools and Steve Latta's DVDs. And so I spent maybe 10 years where once a year I would put the DVD into the DVD player and get my notebook out and then decide, get it running, and then decide I need to go get a beer, and then I need to go see who's at the front door, and oh gee, thing's over and I didn't watch it. And I do that once a year for 10 years. And finally, I realized this is just not gonna work. So I decided to go and take one of Steve Latta's courses, and he is the nation's guru on string inlay. And he teaches at a number of places. I went to Mark Adams, where he regularly teaches string inlay, and I took his basic string course. So it's a week-long course. And he's a professional teacher. He, up until this year, taught furniture making at a college. So he's an absolutely pro teacher. You know, everything is beautifully clear, and he's just very sequential. So, and I still haven't watched his wonderful DVDs, but anyway, and I bought the really cool Lee Nielsen tools. So before you go to check the Lee Nielsen website, they're no longer making these, but they are. I checked a week ago and I found 2 websites where they had, one had a brand new set that no one had used that was available. eBay often has them. So, I mean, if you really want to get hooked on string inlay and want these tools, you can do it. So I'm going to cut the string that I just set up here and then talk about some other ways of doing it. Okay, and now you guys can't see this at all, but I'm taking my handy dandy Stanley utility knife. I have some fancy inlay knives. I have scalpels that I steal from the hospital. I have lots of really fancy cutters, but these guys work great. And I don't have it with me, but the one I really like are the utility knives where you can break the point off. That means you can take 2 cuts, and if you think it's getting dull, you just snap it off and you've got a brand new edge. So you don't really need anything fancy for this. You need a metal straight edge and a cutting surface. And I use these self-healing cutting surfaces that you get at any art store. I use them all the time in my shop for lots of things. So, question?
The holly, is it quarter cut or hangs on?
It's whatever comes. And the board that I have that cost me a child it goes from quarter sawn to one side to flat sawn at the other end.
So when you cut it, do you have any issues with the knife going with the grain?
Yes, and sometimes I find that I'm going along and it's catching the grain and splitting in, and all I have to do is switch the veneer the other orientation. So I should be able to just cut it going the other way, but I'm not capable of doing that. So rather than just pulling the knife the other way, I just flip it around. And that's always dealt with it for me. So we're gonna just cut the string. And it's better not to try to cut it all at once. It's better to do multiple passes. There we go, one string. So there are other ways to cut string. You can use this fancy dancy Lee Nielsen string cutting tool. And any true woodworker makes their own. Okay, and if you take Steve Lauda's course, the first thing you do is make one of these. It's just a cutter. There's no point in showing it to the camera because you guys can't see it, but it's just a cutter here and a flat surface. So you can just put it on a hard surface and just whoop, 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 and cut the string off. What I just showed you, I like a ton better, which is why I didn't demonstrate this. I think it's so easy to just use a utility knife. What you get with this is that you can set the depth by how far you protrude the blade. So you can set it 1/32 and but I've never found that worked as well as what I just showed you here. And what I showed you required zero fancy tools. So, okay, so we just cut a string. But this string is not 1/32 thick, right? I said it was just a piece that I resawed on the bandsaw. And it is, actually, it's just barely over, actually. But it's probably varies. Yeah, it's a little thicker there, a little thicker there. So now, how do you get it down to 1/32? Well, the classic method is a scraper. Right here, a scraper blade where you pull the string through and it scrapes it down to 1/32. And if you take Steve Lauda's course, you'll make one of these. I abandoned the one I made, so because I had this gold-plated Lee Nielsen scraper, which I don't use, by the way. What I'm going to show you is not a cheap alternative, but it is so cool and it works so well. But the classic way to thickness this is to put it in your scraper and just pull it down. And this lets you have two thicknesses. So if it's pretty thick to start with, you can do a preliminary scrape with a thick one and then go down to your 1/32. So does this make sense to everyone? Okay, this is the classic way to size string inlay. So the goal is to get it to be 1/16 by 1/32. What I have, which is so cool, is this little tool that Impulse. And it is from Bridge City, another tool company with gold-plated everything. And I think they made this originally for people to make chopsticks. And it's a block plane, and it's a block plane with two runners on the side. Can you see these runners? So I set these runners so they're 1/32 below the blade. So I am going to size my string inlay using my block plane. Usually one pass is enough. I'm going to do both ends. $1/32 exactly. So I have no idea what this little toy costs, but it is so cool. I mean, it's really the perfect tool for sizing string inlay. So
They're usually $79 on sale.
79? Really?
There used to be a whole lot more, but now they.
Ay, ay, ay. I should have bought 3. So,
129 down to 89 right now.
okay, it's pretty cool. So you can come up and look at it, but it just has 2 runners. And you can space it quite a bit, so you could size anything, but it's really perfect for doing this. I really love it. I'm really surprised it's that cheap. Okay, so we've now just made string, poly string, that's 1/16 by 1/32. Okay, let's go to our project now. So I'd like us to do this. And the first step in doing this is to draw it out. So I'm going to just put a line 3/4 inch in, all the way around.
We can see this great out on Zoom, by the way.
Where's my? So I'm using the workbench is a Festool multifunction table, FMT. And I have 2 of these and I really love them. They're very different than European workbenches. You know, you don't have the vices. So what you do is clamp to the side, but they're really, I mean, I have both. I have 3 European workbenches and 2 of these, and I work among all of them. But the thing I really like about it is I can fold it up and haul it around. So that's a nice thing. Okay, there's the straight lines, and now we need to put the curves in. So I'm gonna just put a little divot in for a compass, right? And I'm doing a 1 5/8 radius, which the holly string has no problem with that tight of a radius. I'm not sure what the tightest radius you can get with holly string. I definitely have gone down to 1.5 inch. I don't know that I've gone below that. If you're doing a much tighter radius, you'll need to put a curve. You'll need to bend your string first, and I use heat to do that. So, and I'm not exactly sure at what point you need to switch to put the curve into your radius. So I put a little pivot point in for the compass. There's that. I'm gonna do one here. Now, what if this is your Northern Woods entry? What's if this is your Northern Woods entry and you don't want these little divots? Another option is to take little plastic pieces with a little divot mark in it and tape it down to where you want it. And then you use that for your compass fulcrum. Oops, wrong side. Okay, but this isn't going to be my Northern Woods entry, so we'll just go with it. And let's okay, I just drew out the whole project. Okay. Now, magically, I drew it out earlier. So the next thing you have to do, and I won't tell you why I know this is super important, but you have to erase anything you don't want to put a groove in. Okay. And I mean, this is so important. Okay, I'll just leave it at that, but. All right, here's my handy dandy eraser. Erase this. Erase this. Okay, so now, thanks to my handy dandy eraser, we now have the whole project out in pencil. So we're ready for the next part. So what we need are grooves that are 1/8 of an inch deep that follows each of these pencil lines. And so some of these pencil lines are straight, and some of them are curved with a radius of 1 5/8 inch. And so we need to deal with those separately. So now for both the straight and the curve, you have two options. You can use hand tools or power tools, like most things in woodworking. And my advice, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about on drawing out the pattern. So sorry. I've been sick for 2 weeks, so I haven't practiced this. So I'm kind of making this up as I go, sorry. Okay. This is a splat for a chair back. Right? I mean, it goes, you know what a splat is, it goes here. So, and it's string inlay, and I had hoped to have this chair finished and bring it to you, but some travel got in the way and some sickness got in the way, so I didn't. But what you should notice is that the radius for some of these curves is off the board, right? So how the heck am I going to pin my compass down or my router down to do these curves if it's off the board? So then you need to make a support for it. And now the support allows me to do the curve. So I have a pivot point that's off the work board, right? And a number of the projects I've done, I've needed a pivot point off the work surface. So I had to make this to match the size and the curve of the chair splat. Okay. So a little nuance on the drawing of the pattern. All right, so we were talking about how to do curves and straight lines, and we said we can do them with hand tools or power tools. And my advice is figure out, if you want to get into this, figure out how to do both. And I find sometimes little delicate tight curves are better done with a hand tool than with a power tool. So I like being able to move between both methods. So we're going to start with straight lines. And we'll start with hand tools. And what I'm going to use is this tool made by Lee Nielsen to do this. And this thing is pretty simple. It's a cutter. And if you go and come up and look at it afterwards, you'll see it's a pretty simple cutter. And it's got 3 teeth and they're cut at different angles, but it's pretty simple. And I'm able to adjust the distance out from the rest by loosening this screw and sliding the cutter in and out. So we can use a hand tool, and I'm going to just do that right here. Sorry, and you're going to have to go around me. Needs adjusting. I'm not going to do now. Yeah, I'm not going to fool with it, but you get the idea. You can use a hand tool to do a straight line. And the other option is to use a power tool. Every good woodworker loves power tools because they're noisy and yes.
Do you ever consider using a standard marking gauge? Because that's not that much.
I never have. It would need to be 1/32 wide.
But you would make 2 lines, 2.
Yeah, I mean, I could see other ways. Yeah, I definitely could see other ways. I mean, I had this tool.
And then the other thing is that they use different methods for grooving it using solid wood or putting a groove into a veneer.
So the question was, are there different techniques for using veneer versus solid wood? I have only done solid wood projects.
I'm talking about the core.
I've only done solid wood. So, well, yes and no. Like I mean, it's still solid wood. My chair splats are a bent lamination, but it's still solid wood. So, and I don't actually go all the way through a lamination to do the strings. So, yeah.
Does the Lee Nielsen have 2 knives on it?
There's just one
Just one?
one knife with 3 teeth.
You get 2 grooves.
There's only one groove.
So 1 groove and then you have to move it a 32nd?
No, one groove. This cutter is a 32nd of an inch thick. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Can you? Yeah. The cutter is you have to look really carefully. I wish I had a magnifying glass to go with it, but the cutter is a 32nd of an inch thick. So it makes a groove a 32nd of an inch. That's not a door price. Okay, the other option. Question.
You could alternate.
You were cutting a straight line. I didn't see you put a stop there, so you did over.
Yeah, I do it by eye. Yeah, It comes out pretty clean. I mean, I've met probably with everything I've done, but yeah, it's not that hard. And what I find is, especially if I'm doing it by hand tools and not power tools, the groove is often not deep enough at the start and the finish. And I have this clever little chisel made by Lee Valley Veritas that is 1/32 of an inch thick, and it go in and finish anything that I didn't do very well. So, and the other thing, another of their chisels, this one has got a hook to it, which I like if I have to drag it along. And the other thing is, if it's really, really a nice piece, I often want the end absolutely square. And this is another one of their 1/32 of an inch chisels that is good for making an absolutely square end to the groove. So these aren't necessary, but it doesn't take long before when you do your first project, you'll see where you'd like to have done it better. And that's when you decide you need these little Lee Valley Veritas things. So. Okay, straight lines. So we're going to use a router. And as far as I know, there are two main companies that make router bases for doing tiny inlay routing. And when I do my mother of pearl, you know, my butterflies or something, I mean, I like to put a little bit of art in my furniture, and I use these to do that as well. So these tools aren't just for string inlay. They have other purposes. And there are two main companies that make these router bases. One of them is Lee Valley Veritas, and there's a really beautiful that come with a ton of attachments, including, I mean, it's really nice. They're heavy. It's a little harder to see your work, I find. And the other company that makes them is StewMac, the company that specializes in guitar stuff. And a lot of guitars have inlays, so this is something. And this is one of the StewMac router bases. And in both cases, you have an option. There's probably many options. The options I know is to use a Dremel for the motor, and the other one is to use a Fortum. And I have a Fortum, but I don't have the attachment that I would need to put a Fortum on one of these. And because of the cable, I think it would be irritating. So I have no experience with the Fortum. I've only used the Dremel. So, and the Dremel just screws into these bases. So as you can see, this one doesn't have the Dremel attached. I only have two Dremels, so this one, I didn't have a third one to put into this, but it would have just screwed right in here. And of course, you need a 1/32 of an inch router bit, which both of these companies, several companies sell these router bits. And you don't buy one, by the way. They break. So a lot, especially if you're hurrying. Don't hurry and erase the lines that you don't want to route. Okay, so we're going to do a straight line route. Here's a way to do it. We could take this router base from StewMac, where we would have screwed our Dremel right here, and just clamp a board on it. And I drew these lines for 3/4 of an inch from the edge. So I use these, I have a ton of these setup blocks that I make that I use all the time. This is just a 3/4 inch block. And I just have them around the shop, and they're really great for quick setups on bandsaws and table saws and whatever. So we could have just put the Dremel in with the router bit sticking out and throwing in the 3/4 inch block and then set this wooden fence. So it's 3/4 inch from our router bit. Does that make sense? Okay, pretty simple. I mean, you've got to buy this toy from Stu Mack, and you have to buy a Dremel. Everyone has a Dremel. Most people don't know what to do with it. It's been in the corner of their shop for ages. So this will give you a reason to use that Dremel. So it's pretty simple, right? I just took a random scrap of board and a couple of C-clamps and clamped it to this thing, and now I can do straight lines. Or for a lot more money, I can get exactly the same thing from Lee Valley Veritas. And here, it comes with a fence and a really fancy metal doodad to hold the thing. So, but it does the same thing. And so what we've done here is I put in the router bit, the 32nd of an inch router bit is in here. And we've set it so it's 3/4 of an inch from the fence. Now, the next thing we need is we need to do it at a 1/16 of an inch deep, that router bit. And so I could sit here with my handy dandy ruler and measure all day long. It's actually right. So you could do it with a ruler, but what I have is this little piece of plastic that has a 1/16 of an inch step in it. And actually my first one is wood, which is somewhere around here, but I thought the plastic looked cooler. So all I did was set the router bit so it comes right up to that 1/16 of an inch step. Okay. So the router bit, 1/32 of an inch router bit, extends 1/16 of an inch. And the fence is set 3/4 of an inch from the router bit. So now we could go and just route. Pretty easy. You paid good money to see this. I don't know why. It's spiral up. Yep. All right, so here's a problem. In my shop, I have this handy dandy Festool vacuum sitting on one side and a nozzle for compressed air on the other side. And so it's really easy to clean this groove out. I have a clue how I'm gonna clean it out here. I ponder this and just decided, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So yeah, I'm gonna try the chisel. It does pretty good job. Yeah. No problem. Oops.
Throw them away or?
I've never had a bit go dull. They break. And I'm cheating here. This is MDF. Okay, so the real hardcore demonstrators, of course, use ebony or something, you know, and have magic bits that never break, but yeah. Okay, so we now have a groove. We now have string. You know, this is a nuance I wasn't going to talk about, but I just have no control myself. If you're using a router bit, router bits are round, which means the ends of your groove are round. And you have a choice now. You can round the string, and all you have to do is take a little sandpaper and go boop, boop, and then the other see boop, boop. Or you can use my little chisel to make it so the end isn't round, but it's square. And then you want this square, the end of your string. And I have these flush cut scissors, clippers, I don't know, that give a really clean flush cut to make it square. So we'll put that in there. Oops. And of course, with a pattern like this, we have a lot of overlapping lines. You have to finish a line completely and smooth it out before you do the overlapping one, right? So this needs to be done in steps. And the steps don't take very long. I mean, you know, you kind of work on do something on one side and then do something on the other side, and by then the other side's dry enough that you can finish it. So it's not like it has to take days, right? This project was a morning for me to do. Okay, so we have a groove. It's a little bit cleaned out, and now we're going to put glue in it. Steve Lauda says use type 1 tight bond. I don't know. I've used any PVA glue that's sitting next to me, and it doesn't seem to matter at all. But he knows more than I do. And he says use type 1. Type 1 has a very short open time. And the advantage of it is that if you're fast and you're working around your piece, it'll be ready to deal with sooner using something that's going to harden quickly. But if you work at the speed I do, it doesn't matter. So, okay. And we're going to put glue all the way along. We want glue all the way along the groove, but we don't want to fill the groove. I don't know. These are just, I don't know, you get them at Woodcraft and Rockler. Yeah, but the classic, the thing I was taught to use are these things for cleaning out the socket of when you had your wisdom teeth pulled. So and you became stupid after that. So these work pretty well. I've used anything. It doesn't matter. So I have some blunt hypodermic needles that I put on a syringe. They work fine. But you want a pretty fine applicator. And I'm having trouble here. Seems to be clogged. Ed, did you have string inlay on that Northern Woods project?
It was an eighth of an inch thick, so I don't think it would qualify.
Oh, well, thick string.
The same technique.
Yeah. Oops, thick string. Twine. That's good. So string inlay is kind of one of the classic characteristics of federal period furniture. So, but I think it works really well. I did a really cool box lid that with string inlay. I really liked it. I didn't take a picture of it, and in Art-A-Whirl a few weeks ago, it sold in about 2 minutes. So it's gone. Don't tell my wife, she'd be mad. Well, look at my chair splat is, I mean, the chair is a pretty modern chair, and yet I put a classic string, and I don't think it makes the chair look old fashioned, so. Yeah. Okay, I put the glue in the groove. I didn't fill it with glue, but there was glue all the way around. And now I'm gonna just push the string in. No, I'm not using my best chisel. It's a Home Depot whatever that's never been sharpened. So, but it's perfect for, you know, this sort of thing, pushing string in. And I'm wiping the excess glue off. String, straight line string. Okay, let's do a curve. We'll do this curve over here. We'll come back to that string in a few minutes. So what I want to do is a curve here. And here's a compass from Lee Nielsen. And again, every real serious woodworker makes their own, but you can find these in eBay if you really, really want to have a gold-plated one. And this is a pivot point here, sharp pivot point, and a cutter. And the cutter it's the exact same cutter, not true. It's a two-tooth cutter, but a very similar cutter to what you saw in the straight line cutter. So it cuts a groove, a 32nd of an inch thick, and it'll pivot, and it'll pivot on those little divots that I made for the compass. And so and when I'm doing a real project, I agonize over the overlap. What layer do I want to do first, and what is going to cut over it? So, you know, we're going to have, like, I'm doing this curve right now, and it's going to end with this straight line. And so, you know, I sit there and agonize over which one I want to be the one that shows. And I generally go for the straight line is going to be the last thing that goes in, but you could do it the other way and you'd still be right. So.
Doing a symmetrical design, you want to make sure you do the same thing.
On all sides, yep.
Otherwise, it will catch your eye.
You know what? Maybe we should pass 2 pieces around that I have here. Maybe we should just pass all 3 of these around. You guys want to touch these and just do this too. Yeah. I recommend taking your glasses off before you look at these. I'll leave it at that. The white wood filler from Woodcraft looks just like holly. Okay, so we just put a curve in. And I guess I do it by, sometimes I try to put a little Sharpie mark on here. The question was, how do I control the depth? And sometimes I put a Sharpie mark on the cutter, but otherwise I just go and see how the string fits. You know, I've never agonized over it. Life is good. I think it doesn't matter. Yeah, and you're gonna, well, you stop pushing the string in. Yeah, I mean, so you're never pushing the string in. So I think it doesn't matter. Let's just say I've never worried about it. And I can't remember where, like on this chair splat, some of that was done by hand and some of it was done by router. So, and I don't remember which was which, but you know, I haven't worried. Don't worry, be happy. That's what woodworkers say. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to glue this string in, but you got the idea. So let's do a curve. And again, so I don't have the StewMac compass router. This is one made by Steve Lauda. And if you take one of these classes, he will gladly sell you one. But he keeps saying, and people have told me he's been saying this for 10 years, he's going to start selling his own line of inlay tools. But I don't know. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. And I don't, apparently Lee Nielsen, they said they just couldn't focus on anything other than their core products. And they're having, Lee Nielsen, at least the last time I was there, they were having trouble getting employees, which is kind of the story everywhere. So, and Maine is so depressed. How could that be? I don't know. But anyway, so this compass is a Steve Lauda compass. And what I did was took the top half of a StewMac router base, and I pulled the bottom half off it. And I screwed on Steve Lauda's compass, router compass. We also could have used the Lee Valley Veritas. And I'm not going to show you right now, but I think I brought it. I think it's there. We could take the straight fence off and put a pivoting fence on. So we could do the same thing with the Lee Valley Veritas. The Lee Valley Veritas compass attachment works best for longer radiuses. For smaller radiuses, it's really hard to see. Where this one, I mean, it's not so much the clear plastic that helps, it's just less stuff here. So I find this is easier to see for a tight radius than this, but this one works just fine. So, okay, so let's get some power to this. So it works just like our compass. This is a sharp point, a router bit, a 32nd of an inch router bit set for a depth of 1/16 of an inch. And I'm just going to put put it in the pivot point, and where's the pedal? Can't believe you guys paid for this. That's it. So we did a curve with a hand tool and a curve with a router. Pretty much the same thing. And I'm not going to glue string in, but you get the idea. I would clean out the sawdust just like we did with this string. All right, last thing, go back to that straight line. So now this guy's sitting proud. I don't know how proud, less than a 64th. I mean, but you can feel it. It's proud. So if we want to have, say, other string going over it, we can't have that there. It would mess up the flow of what the hand tool or the power tool going over the thing. So we need to smooth that out. And there are several methods to do that. One is really easy. They're both really easy. Take my handy dandy bench chisel, a good one that's sharp, and use it beveled down. And, oh, it doesn't help them. I'm sorry. But I'm just sliding it along. Can anyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. So that's one method. And the other method is, and if you're using your good chisel, make sure there's no glue on it when you're done. The other method is take your handy dandy block plane that everyone has constantly on their bench and just do it that way. You know, everyone says it does. I think it probably, the question was, could you use a card scraper? And a lot of these string inlay people that I have Facebooked with, that's how they do it. I just haven't done it that way. And this works. And you know, this, as far as I'm concerned, using the block plane or the chisel, it's just temporary. right? This is just to get it down flush so you can do anything else you need to do without a ridge up there that's going to mess things up. So I don't think this step needs to be very perfect. So, and then, you know, now it's pretty smooth. Kind of smooth. There we go. Now it's smooth enough that we could do string that's overlapping it and it wouldn't mess it up. And then when it's all done, then is where you'd either card scrape or sand or whatever your preference is for smoothing it up. So, yes.
Okay, let's say you're doing it holly and walnut.
Which looks great, by the way.
Do you have an issue with the walnut if you're sanding in the last steps, let's say you're gonna sand? The sanding of the walnut sawdust gets into the holly.
Right there. This is holly and walnut.
So you don't do any pre-finishing sealing of
I did not. Yeah, and the box that I did where I did the string inlay in the lid of the box, that was walnut too. It wasn't a problem. Holly's pretty tight grained wood. So, I mean, I was worried about that, but it was. So the question was whether the dark sawdust of the walnut is going to stain or fill the holly in some way and make the holly less white. And here's the answer. Not a problem. Question.
holly.
Oh, maple string.
Maple string, yeah. And then you do want to shellac the whole thing before you start sanding.
That makes sense, yeah.
Voice experience.
Yeah, okay. I used, only because I was lazy and it was handy, I used sycamore, which is pretty open grain, and it wasn't a problem with that. So, I mean, I would have expected sycamore to be worse than maple, but yeah. So, yeah, and again, sycamore. I've cut others. I've used dyed wood, like there's the butterfly going around. The black in that is dyed. No, you glue it. You have to glue them together as you're putting it in. It would lose its flexibility if you glued it and let it dry. You could probably glue the multiple strings together around a form, so it already has the radius that you want, but I didn't do that. So it takes 6 arms, and I mean, an octopus could do it better because you're trying to glue the different color strips together as you're pushing it down into the groove and gluing it into the groove. It's fun. So, and we all love glue ups when someone else does them. So, yeah. More questions? Yeah.
You can talk about using your CNC router.
So, yeah, the question is, I didn't talk about using the CNC. And so last summer, I moved from the Carriage House, which is one of the buildings in the Arts District, into Casket Arts. And in the Carriage House, I had a partner, a woodworker, who was heavily into CNC, and he did a lot of CNC inlay. And he couldn't do string as fine as I could. He just found those bits just broke. It just wasn't worth the effort. So his inlay was always thicker and heavier. But it didn't matter. I mean, he was like doing these huge game tables that were, I don't know, 4 by 8 feet. I don't know. They were big. So it needed bigger inlay to really show. But he was not able to duplicate this. Thank goodness. otherwise I go, what the heck do I have all these things for? So, but, so did everyone hear that? The question was, why not just use CNC? But my guess is that people who are really good at CNC know how to really slow the router movement down, which I think that's got to be the thing to get it, to really get the router to move slowly. And heat's going to be a problem too. I mean, I think you could do it with a CNC, but it would take some work to figure it out, and probably a lot of bits. So, and let me just say, when I'm working in hardwood, I do break bits all the time. So, yeah, but when Brian tried the CNC, they just snapped instantly. So my bits just snapped instantly. Pissed me off, but that was all right. No, I didn't care. It was all right. No other questions? Oh, I mean, that's a lot of ground actually. So yeah, I hope some people are interested in trying it. So, I mean, I think it's fun to take new techniques and put them in, use them in a surprising way. Don't do a Federalist piece of furniture, do mid-century modern with some string inlay in it, and break the mold. So, and I enjoy doing that. I like pulling these new techniques in, and I'll use them for a while. So a woman's ordered, but yeah, these two guys are sold, so don't mess them up. But I mean, she wants something pretty off the wall, and I'm kind of looking. It'll be a fun project. So yeah, fun to do different things with it. And anyone want to take a mortise and tenon class a week from Saturday, come up and see me, please. And feel free to come up and, look at these things. You can try them, play with them, whatever you want. So yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.